I've always sort of viewed the marijuana in the show as much more of a metaphor for the society with women. I think that it's sort of like the dirty little secret inside this sort of clean environment.
She once kissed Tom Hanks in a movie that brought all of America to tears, then quietly withdrew from Hollywood as if she had never existed. No scandal, no farewell, no one understood why. Elizabeth Perkins, the woman who nearly stole Tom Hanks's spotlight in Big, 1988, who played supporting roles that made the leads seem dull, who stepped into the hearts of audiences without ever needing to shout, and then vanished just as her career was glowing brightest. The story behind that disappearance wasn't a career downfall. It was a battle for survival, a dangerous illness silently destroying her body, a different choice of life, to stand at the edge of the screen so the entire film could shine. Hollywood forgot her. The public doesn't remember her name. But the most demanding directors never did, because she didn't act to be famous. She acted so that the seemingly small characters could become more alive than the leads. You might not know who she is, but if you've ever watched Big, Avalon, The Doctor, or Weeds, you've been moved by her without even knowing it. And that's the scariest part. Some people don't need to stand out to silence the entire room. Elizabeth Ann Perkins was born on November 18, 1960, in Queens, New York, into a family with a diverse cultural and artistic background. Her mother, Jo Williams, was a concert pianist and also a drug treatment counselor, while her father, James Perkins, was a businessman, farmer, and writer. Her family carried Greek heritage from her paternal grandparents, who had immigrated from Thessaloniki and changed their surname from Pisperikos to Perkins upon arriving in the United States. Her parents' marriage ended when Elizabeth was just 3 years old, leading her to move to her grandparents' 600-acre farm in Vermont. There, she spent her childhood immersed in the wilderness, learning to drive a tractor at the age of 10 or 11, and taking part in activities like hunting, fishing, and exploring the natural world around her. These experiences not only shaped her strong, independent personality, but also nurtured her vivid imagination. She once shared that living in a rural environment gave her imagination the freedom to grow. After completing high school at Northfield Mount Hermon School, Elizabeth pursued her passion for acting at the Goodman School of Drama at DePaul University in Chicago, where she graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in 1981. During this time, she also began her stage career, working with renowned theater companies such as the Steppenwolf Theater and the New York Shakespeare Festival, laying a solid foundation for her future in acting. Elizabeth Perkins entered the film industry in 1986 by making a choice that defied expectations. In About Last Night, a romantic film seen as a launching pad for rising stars, she turned down the lead role to play a supporting character who was unpleasant, impulsive, and sharp-edged. That role had more to chew on, she told director Edward Zwick when asked why. Joan, the blunt, pragmatic, and skeptical best friend, became a self-contained counterpoint in the story. The character wasn't written to be likable, but still left a mark through its emotional complexity. The performance earned Elizabeth Perkins a spot on Screen World's 1986 list of 12 promising new actors, a recognition of choices that didn't follow the standard formula. 2 years later, in 1988, she landed a part in one of the decade's most successful films, Big, a 20th Century Fox production starring Tom Hanks, already a major Hollywood name. Big grossed over $150 million worldwide and earned Hanks his first Oscar nomination. But the role of Susan Lawrence, played by Elizabeth, was also central to the film's emotional core. Susan wasn't the lead, nor was she the comic relief. But she was the only one who sensed something different in Josh, the 13-year-old boy trapped in an adult's body. Elizabeth Perkins played Susan with restraint and layered emotions, from curiosity to empathy, from attraction to realization. In someone else's hands, the role of Susan could have been reduced to just the love interest. Perkins transformed her into a distinct figure, grounded, imperfect, but deeply intuitive. When Susan discovers the truth, her quiet decision to step back and return Josh to his childhood delivers one of the most poignant and serene endings in 1980s cinema. Yet when people talk about Big, most remember Tom Hanks, the piano on the floor, the image of a child in a grown man's body. Susan and Elizabeth Perkins are rarely mentioned. It's a reality many supporting actresses have faced, and a testament to quiet but essential contributions. From Big onward, Elizabeth Perkins carved her own path, not chasing maximum screen time, but always ensuring her roles carried lasting weight. After her breakthrough with Big, instead of rushing into commercial leading roles, she quietly joined the cast of Avalon, a deeply personal film by director Barry Levinson, who had just won an Oscar for Rain Man and could have taken on any project he wanted. And he chose to return to his hometown of Baltimore to tell the story of his own family. In the film, Elizabeth played Anne Kay, the second-generation daughter-in-law of a Russian immigrant family. It was the kind of supporting role that could easily be overshadowed. But under Perkins's touch, Anne became an emotional anchor, quietly reflecting the painful shift between tradition and modernity, between closeness and the fracturing of the post-war American family. And it wasn't by accident that she could do that. What sets Barry apart as a director, Elizabeth shared, is the incredibly easy atmosphere he creates on set. So natural that every performance feels real. Levinson didn't ask for long rehearsals. He let things unfold instinctively. Perkins had spent weeks reading lines for other directors only to be sidelined during filming. But with Avalon, she was heard, understood, and allowed to live within the character. Levinson himself was eccentric in casting Perkins, a Greek-American, as a Jewish daughter-in-law, alongside Irish-born Aidan Quinn and English actress Joan Plowright. But to him, it wasn't about ethnicity. It was about genuine personality. "Ordinary people are never ordinary," Plowright recalled him saying. The set of Avalon was steeped in nostalgia. Levinson recreated the Hollands market of 1948, where his father had once opened his first TV store. It rained naturally during filming, but not enough to match his memory, so he brought in rain machines, causing even himself, now among Hollywood's top directors, to laugh, worried that it might rain too much. Anne, Elizabeth's character, was like those raindrops, quiet but essential to the atmosphere. In the film, as material success gradually pulls generations apart, Anne silently witnesses the sorrow without ever naming it. She represents millions of post-war American women caught between tradition and freedom, silent but not invisible. Avalon was never meant to be a box office hit. It was built from memory, regret, and a deep reflection on family, something Hollywood was drifting away from. And Elizabeth Perkins left an irreplaceable mark on that emotional symphony through restraint, quietness, and a truth so raw that anyone could see themselves in her. After her success in Big and Avalon, Elizabeth Perkins took on a role that's rarely mentioned, but anyone who has seen it will say she owned every frame. In The Doctor, William Hurt plays Jack McKee, a brilliant but arrogant surgeon who dismisses the emotions of his patients. Everything changes when he's diagnosed with throat cancer. From a man who gives orders, he becomes someone who must follow them. From a healer, he becomes the one who must be healed, or not. In the midst of that internal reckoning appears June Ellis, a young, beautiful, terminally ill cancer patient, played by Elizabeth Perkins. June is not the inspiring type of character. She's angry, sharp, bitter, and she knows she's dying. But it's that raw intensity that turns her into the mirror through which Jack sees his own humanity. "Please don't waste my time," June says coldly. when the doctor starts slipping into hollow, pitying cliches. June doesn't need pity. She needs truth. And Elizabeth Perkins's portrayal is the unsentimental, unsweetened, but truest heart of the entire film. What the audience didn't know, Perkins's best friend in real life had died of lung cancer at age 42. "I brought that pain into every scene," she said. "This wasn't a technically difficult role, but it's the one that choked me up the most." Unlike Celia in Weeds or Susan in Big, June Ellis wasn't written to steal the spotlight, because the character herself carried enough depth to draw every gaze. Perkins didn't cry or scream. She just sat there, looked, and said things as simple as, "I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of having no one to talk to." And the audience understood. She knew what it meant to be that close to death. No one remembers that June was a supporting character. They only remember that she was the one who made a doctor learn how to be human again. If Big brought Elizabeth Perkins closer to the mainstream audience, then Weeds turned her into a walking contradiction, someone viewers despised bitterly, yet couldn't take their eyes off. Throughout the first 5 seasons of this acclaimed series, Elizabeth portrayed Celia Hodes, the quintessential suburban American woman, yet laced with venom, anxiety, and danger. She was the kind of character where, the moment she entered the frame, you knew trouble was coming. "I think Celia definitely has some kind of personality disorder," Perkins once half-joked in an interview. Celia embodied suburban America in collapse, desperately maintaining appearances while cracking from within. She was the kind of mother who insulted her daughter's weight daily, the neighbor who borrowed a gun to shoot someone she hated, the type of woman for whom every moral boundary was something to cross, not to keep. Perkins admitted, "I would never say to my daughter the things Celia says on the show. Never." And while audiences laughed out loud at Celia's outrageousness, few realized she was a character with no way out. No loving husband, fractured children, fake friends. She received affection from no one, not even her closest friend, Nancy Botwin. "Celia's angry because she knows she'll never have the life she believes she deserves," said Elizabeth Perkins. "She's unloved, unchosen, and it eats her from the inside." A memorable behind-the-scenes detail. Each morning before shooting, the makeup team would assess Celia's mental state today to style her hair accordingly. Sleek blonde hair when Celia was in control. Ugly, stiff wig after chemotherapy. Messy, dirty hair when she'd completely unraveled. Her hair and makeup were a map of Celia's emotions, Perkins shared. That attention to detail transformed Celia from a comic relief into a reflection of America's darker underbelly. Like Janice Soprano or Betty Draper, Celia wasn't a character you loved, but one you remembered, one who made you look at yourself. 3 Emmy nominations and 2 Golden Globe nods back that up. But more importantly, Celia achieved cultural immortality. She became an archetype, a new kind of character, an anti-mom TV hadn't dared to portray so honestly before. "I begged them to kill Celia. Push me off a cliff, anything," Perkins recalled when she was written off Weeds. "They said, we just don't know what else to write for her." Celia Hodes ended without redemption, without glory, and that's what made her one of the realest female characters ever to appear on American television. After Weeds, Elizabeth Perkins entered a new phase in her career. She became one of the most versatile and unpredictable supporting actresses on American television for more than a decade. Not everyone recognized her in This Is Us as Janet Malone, the quiet, repressed, conservative mother who seemed to have buried all her emotions long ago. Nor did anyone imagine that the witty woman in Curb Your Enthusiasm, Marty Funkhauser's new girlfriend, was once that Celia Hodes who drove fans wild. But that's Perkins, a modern television chameleon who never repeats herself, never lets the audience feel familiar, and never needs a lead role to take over the screen emotionally. In Netflix's Glow, she was Birdie, The towering 80s matriarch with sky-high curls, crimson lipstick, and makeup so heavy it seemed to mask a wrecked life. In HBO's Sharp Objects, she returned as Jackie, a wealthy, alcoholic woman haunted by the past and corroded by pride. "Jackie is my favorite role since Celia Hodes," she said. "Hair high as heaven, garish dresses, makeup by the pound. Jackie tries to prove she's not weak, but she fails anyway." Elizabeth Perkins decodes people. The more elaborate the character's appearance, the more fragile they are inside. And she understands that better than anyone. From the icy mother, This Is Us, the chaotic girlfriend, Curb Your Enthusiasm, the discarded queen, Glow, to the lonely, confused lady, Sharp Objects, Perkins moves across genres, leaving her mark through truth, subtlety, and that quiet devastation in her eyes. She may not be a familiar face to every viewer, but in each fleeting moment she makes you believe. It's not Perkins acting, it's the character truly living. Did you know that before entering Hollywood, Elizabeth Perkins already had a first family in the truest theatrical sense? In 1982, as a young actress still searching for her break, she met Terry Kinney, co-founder of the Steppenwolf Theater Company, alongside Gary Sinise and Jeff Perry. Established in the basement of a church in Highland Park, Illinois, Steppenwolf wasn't just the birthplace of many major stage actors. It was a breeding ground for independent artistic thinking. For Kinney, the stage was the ultimate artistic destination, not merely a stepping stone. Elizabeth Perkins found in it both a creative community and her first life partner. They married in 1984, during a time when both were still committed to the stage before stepping into mainstream cinema. As Perkins's career began to rise in Hollywood, especially after About Last Night and Big, Kinney chose to remain loyal to the Chicago theater scene and later transitioned into television with a standout role in Oz. Their diverging career paths, one expanding into film, the other rooted in stage and television, gradually created distance. There were no scandals or public fights, but in 1988, the marriage quietly ended. Though brief, this period left a lasting impact on Perkins's artistic identity. It solidified one thing: she came to film not to chase fame, but because it was another medium of expression, an extension of the stage training that had shaped her. While Kinney continued building a solid career with roles in The Last of the Mohicans, Sleepers, and especially Oz, Elizabeth Perkins entered a new chapter in her personal life, with a role that came with no script: single motherhood. In 1991, at the height of her career, she began a short-lived relationship with television director Maurice Phillips, whom she had worked with on Enid is Sleeping. A year later, the relationship ended. But their daughter, Hannah Jo Phillips, was born, marking the most important turning point in the actress's personal life. No wedding, no public announcement. Elizabeth Perkins chose to keep everything private, from the reasons behind the split to the journey of raising a child alone. Amidst a demanding filming schedule and public attention, she balanced two roles simultaneously: a professional actress and a full-time mother. During the day, she was focused in front of the camera. At night, she returned home to her daughter, playing both mother and father with strength and resilience. Perkins never used this story as a PR tool, but over time, the traces of single motherhood seemed to seep into her roles, from the volatile Celia Hodes to the quiet, distant Janet Malone. Later on, her daughter Hannah Jo Phillips didn't follow her into acting, but occasionally appeared by her side at major film events. Most notably, in 2018, the two attended the premiere of HBO's Sharp Objects, a rare glimpse of Perkins's private life shared with the public. Through all those years, Elizabeth Perkins held firm to one principle: never build an image off personal stories, but stand tall through sheer talent, with dignity. Yet in the eyes of the characters she portrayed, you could always sense the depth of a woman who had walked her path alone, with quiet determination. In a Hollywood world where everything can become a headline, Elizabeth Perkins chose to keep what mattered most private. After years of being a single mother, she met Julio Macat, a man behind the camera, but one who understood the power of every frame. Macat, an Argentine-born cinematographer, had worked on major hits like Home Alone, The Wedding Planner, and Miracle on 34th Street. They met on the set of a Christmas film in 1994, where Macat saw Elizabeth through the lens, and from that moment something quiet but enduring began. "He shot me 4 times, Perkins shared in an interview with AARP, "and I loved him from the first time I looked into the camera." 6 years later, they got married. No press conference, no magazine covers. But according to Elizabeth, it marked the beginning of a life phase she calls post-acting, but deeply real. Her marriage to Julio Macat wasn't just a personal bond. It expanded her role in family life. In addition to her own daughter, she became a stepmother to Macat's 3 sons from a previous marriage, Maximilian, Alexander, and Andreas. She never tried to replace anyone, only to show up at the right moment, in the right way, just as she had always done on screen. In an interview with The Guardian, she made her stance clear. "I don't think I need to replace anyone. I just want to show up at the right time, in the right way, and with all my heart." Elizabeth rarely shares her private life on social media, but now and then a few simple family photos appear around the holidays. No makeup, no stage backdrops, with a short caption, "My whole heart." This marriage wasn't a media event, and that's exactly why it endured. Like soft lighting in cinema, it doesn't overshadow the subject but gives the entire frame depth. Julio Macat became the quiet, steady presence Elizabeth Perkins had traveled a long road to find. Due to her preference for a quiet, private life, few people knew that after marrying cinematographer Julio Macat and entering the new millennium with a warm, blended family, Elizabeth Perkins would soon face a turning point that would reshape her entire rhythm of life. In 2005, during the filming of Weeds Season 2, she began experiencing unexplained physical exhaustion. For 3 years, doctors couldn't pinpoint the cause. On several occasions, they suggested antidepressants, assuming it was psychological. But Perkins knew something else was happening. It wasn't until a routine blood test revealed her blood sugar level at 640, a dangerously high number, that she was finally diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, an autoimmune disorder commonly seen in children but rare in adults. She was 44 years old, with no family history, a healthy diet, and strong self-care habits. "It came out of nowhere," she later shared. "No warning signs, no one in my family ever had it." Worse than the diagnosis was the medical system's response. Her general practitioner handed her a vial of insulin and a syringe, with no clear instructions, no dosage chart, no guidance on how to live with the condition. It was all summed up in one sentence: "You're diabetic now. See you later." With no other choice, Elizabeth Perkins had to teach herself. While filming, she learned to use insulin, monitor her blood sugar, and manage complications. No one on set knew she was battling a disease that required round-the-clock control, and she didn't want them to know. It wasn't until she met Dr. Ann Peters, a top specialist at the University of Southern California, that she finally received proper medical support. But getting there took months of confusion, anxiety, and isolation. She learned to protect herself with one clear rule. If she said, "I need 5 minutes," it meant her body was giving a warning. She carried glucose with her everywhere, from the set to her car. Her longtime assistant could spot symptoms just by how she delivered lines. If she repeated words, sweated, or seemed unfocused, it could mean her blood sugar was spiking or crashing. On set, she began asking directors to be made aware of her condition, a major shift after years of keeping it secret. At first, I didn't want anyone to know, but later I realized, if I don't speak up, one day it's going to turn on me. Perkins uses an MDI insulin pen and regularly wears a continuous glucose monitor CGM to track her levels. She once had a scare when an airport security officer dropped her CGM sensor, and another when she suffered severe hypoglycemia while driving alone on a highway, situations only someone living with T1D can understand the real danger of. She also faced the widespread confusion between type 1 and type 2 diabetes, leading many to believe she could fix it through diet or exercise. This misunderstanding prompted her to speak out boldly about insulin access and public awareness. Insulin should be free, like diapers and tampons. It's something we can't live without. It took nearly a year after her diagnosis for Elizabeth Perkins to find a community she could lean on, and over a decade before she felt confident enough to speak publicly about the condition. Today, Elizabeth doesn't view type 1 diabetes as a burden, but as an inseparable part of her life's journey, managed with knowledge, discipline, and the right support. She doesn't hide it, isn't ashamed, and never hesitates to ask for help. And through that, she continues to act, work, and live fully, as if no limits had ever been written for her. Elizabeth Perkins is not an A-list movie star, nor is she among the highest-grossing actresses of all time. But she represents a rare class of artists in Hollywood, those who consistently deliver artistic value without needing to flaunt it. Over more than 3 decades, Perkins has built her career on role diversity, precise transformation according to a director's vision, and, most notably, the ability to create deep psychological layers for characters that might otherwise seem simple. What characters like Susan, Big, June Ellis, the Doctor, Celia, Weeds, and Jackie, Sharp Objects, share is their complexity and emotional resonance, regardless of screen time or narrative prominence. Directors often refer to Elizabeth Perkins as a tone setter, someone who stabilizes a film's emotional rhythm, calibrates character energy, and maintains a delicate balance between comedy and seriousness in complex television work. She has collaborated with directors like Barry Levinson, Penny Marshall, and Jean-Marc Vallée, filmmakers known for demanding emotional nuance, yet who chose Perkins for her calm, adaptability, and professionalism. In television, Celia Hodes from Weeds is a standout example of the cultural power of a well-written and well-acted supporting role. Though she didn't represent overt feminist ideals, Celia embodied the darker reality of suburban American women. Depressed, abandoned, conflicted, controlling, and socially rebellious in unpredictable ways. Her character paved the way for later TV portrayals of unlikable but real women, like Betty Draper, Mad Men, Janice Soprano, The Sopranos, and Patty Hughes, Damages. Beyond acting, Elizabeth Perkins has become a voice for the type 1 diabetes community in Hollywood. Her decision to go public with her diagnosis while continuing to work on set is a powerful statement of resilience, one that avoids exploiting illness for sympathy or media leverage. In the grand scheme, Elizabeth Perkins may not have become a pop culture icon, but she has created a model of the professional, enduring, and irreplaceable working actor. She's the kind of performer every director wants in their cast, not for name recognition, but for the guarantee of quality. At 64, Elizabeth Perkins remains confidently beautiful in her own way, showing no signs of slowing down. She doesn't chase the spotlight at all costs, but she always shows up exactly where a seasoned actress is needed, one who knows how to quietly elevate a story. In 2023, she caught the television world's attention with her role in Minx Season 2, a series about the birth of a women's erotic magazine in the 1970s. Perkins played Constance Papadopoulos, a wealthy widow with a complicated past who invests in the dreams of young people fighting gender norms. Her character represents a rarely depicted brand of feminism, powerful, mature, and unapologetically sensual. That same year, she reappeared on Apple TV Plus in the Afterparty Season 2, playing Isabel Minos, a mysterious widowed mother at the center of a murder mystery. Channeling the classic grace of Grace Kelly with a touch of Norma Desmond's instability, Perkins delivered a performance of cinematic caliber, even in a comedic whodunit. Her acting wasn't just a highlight, it added psychological depth to the entire storyline. And she's not stopping there. In 2025, she appears in Another Simple Favor, the sequel to the hit 2018 film A Simple Favor. The film premiered at the SXSW Festival in March and is set for release on Amazon Prime on May 1st. In the role of Margaret McClendon, Perkins once again proves her knack for smart role selection, unique, layered, and perfectly aligned with this stage of her career. On set, Elizabeth maintains a professional rhythm, but off-camera, she leads a balanced life, practicing Pilates, hiking, managing her type 1 diabetes with Dexcom technology, and the support of her family. She continues to live with her husband, cinematographer Julio Macat, and maintains a close bond with her stepchildren, her daughter, and the type 1 diabetes community. No need for spotlights, no need for fake glamour. Elizabeth Perkins continues to be herself through inner strength, refined choices, and an unwavering dedication to the craft of acting. In a world where everyone is racing to be seen, Elizabeth Perkins stands as proof of another path, staying in the background to deepen the story, taking a step back so the role can come alive, accepting not being famous to avoid losing herself. Not everyone chooses that road, and not everyone who does makes it to the end. But she did. Quietly, steadily, and with dignity. You may not see her name on the charts, but in the hearts of directors, actors, and true lovers of cinema, she's never absent. What do you think about that choice? In a world where everyone wants to stand in the spotlight, is there still room for people as quiet as Elizabeth Perkins? Leave your thoughts below. And if you value stories like this one, don't forget to follow the channel and turn on notifications, so you won't miss any journey behind the screen. See you next time.